welcome back to the box office, guys. Now, I wanted to do something different today. I want to do box office boxing podcast. So this is going to be our first episode here on YouTube. I have uploaded some on Spotify and on Apple, or on iTunes. But I wanted to get the ball rolling and do a dual upload between YouTube and iTunes for those of you who prefer YouTube, Spotify, or iTunes. So I'm just going to go ahead and talk about a variety of topics that is or are on BoxOfficeBoxing.com, so I can give you more of an insight for those of you that like to read or those of you that like to listen. So first things first, well, let's talk about this past weekend, Tyson Fury. We do know that he came up with a big victory in front of a massive crowd, second largest boxing event in boxing history as far as crowd goes. And he is that box office draw. But what's next for Tyson Fury? There was a lot of pressure. And this guy. A lot of pressure. As far as retirement, no retirement, what's next? He kept being very adamant about him being retired. That he's not going to fight anymore. Which, he earned that right. He put himself in that position. He earned that. But immediately after, he got in that heavyweight champion Francis, and he said he wanted to do a hybrid bout. I don't know how that would work out, but it seems like big trouble as far as if there's any kicking, kneeing. I heard it was basically like a boxing match, but with UFC gloves. There's not a lot of specifics as far as what it would be or how it would look like. We just know that they're trying to get the biggest name in the UFC, the biggest name in boxing, rightfully so. Tyson Fury just did an amazing job marketing himself, and they want to do this ultra super mega event that's going to make them all filthy rich. Again, he earned this though. Tyson Fury did earn this. But what's next for him? Because that's one route that he can take. The other route would be, well, let's look at it from a boxing fan perspective. The route that we all want, the me route for us boxing fans, is obviously the unification bout. Whatever happens between Joshua and Usyk in the rematch, we want to see Tyson Fury in next, because although Tyson Fury is this big draw, we just can't get enough of him. He talks the talk, he walks the walk, he promotes himself really well. Think about this, guys. He crossed over to the WWE world, and from the WWE world, he exposed himself obviously as an entertainer. But his event in the WWE, if I'm not mistaken, was in Dubai. So he's just expanding his exposure globally, not just here in the States. And if you mentioned in some post-fight interviews, you can hear him mention that the United States made him into the superstar that he is. He had a really smart team behind him to go from WWE, a big US market. WWE competed within the WWE in Dubai, if I'm not mistaken, and then came back and fought in his hometown. So he has all eyes on him. That fight it was amazing. It was electric. Respect to the UK fight fans. They know how to fill up an arena. They know how to get there and get there, show their support. They all went in there, rallied for Tyson Fury. His farewell, quote unquote, if it is or if it isn't, bout. But what's next? He, as I mentioned, he's that global phenomenon right now. And we, being the selfish, boxing fans that we are, we would ideally like to see him against AJ's kind of like the bigger draw right now, just because Usyk is more of a boxing purist as far as standpoint, and Usyk can potentially, even finish off Anthony Joshua. It just depends on adjustments. Typically, the boxers do better on the second rematches, so I do see Usyk, outpointing, maybe even knocking out Anthony Joshua if he doesn't make the proper adjustments. So it would lead to an Usyk versus Tyson Fury, and how does that look like on paper? Looks like two amazing boxers One of them is 6'9", the other one is 6'4", 6'3", if I'm not mistaken. Gotta look into that. But it's very intriguing because for the first time since Lennox Lewis, as he mentioned, he made sure to mention, by the way, he made sure to mention that the last unified champion was himself. Maybe trying to bait Tyson Fury into something like we all are at this point. But he really did. We really are trying to just see Tyson Fury unify the belts. Might not happen, because Usyk is the boxing, genius as well. Cleaned out the cruiserweight division, went and took the titles from Joshua, but at 6'9", and Tyson Fury being as tall and that stick that he knows how to use, it'd be very interesting to see if Usyk would adjust to not letting Fury bully him, lay on him, because it's very well known from the Wilder fights that Tyson Fury can wear you down by the fact that he's 6'9", 300 pounds. 6'9", 300 pounds. This guy is he's gonna give anyone a run for their money, whoever it is. And credit when credit is due. Tyson Fury knows how to use the physical attributes that he was born with. He's 6'9", 200 and X pounds. He knows how to use every inch of his body to his advantage. You can't fault the guy for that. It's almost as if we're getting mad at Sebastian Fundora for fighting at middleweight, super welterweight, at 6'5" or whatever, 6'7", however tall he is, because he's so tall and no, he's using what he's got to his advantage, and it's going to be an advantage until, well, it isn't, right? So Tyson Fury can definitely, more like Usyk. Usyk can definitely get a good fight out of Tyson Fury, but I want to say that a fight with Anthony Joshua would just be bigger. And the reason with that is Anthony Joshua did bring a lot of the sponsorships and a lot of those mainstream sponsors and companies into the mix. I know he was, if I'm not mistaken, potentially Gatorade. And I know he was a big Under Armour guy. Big, huge Under Armour guy. So he had the mainstream media just, shipping him out, marketing him everywhere. And when you have someone like Anthony Joshua, when you have someone like Tyson Fury, that fight's going to generate so much money, so much buzz, just for the simple fact that you have two guys that are very well represented and marketed, finally meet each other. And winner take all type of fight. The script writes itself. As far as Usyk, you'd probably need a little bit more about the promotion side. And come on, Tyson Fury sells the fight himself. There's no need to. So he'll get the best out of Usyk. Hopefully Usyk is up to the task to, get his marketing up so that he can get promoted. But he'll do fine. Either way that we're looking at it, as a boxing fan standpoint, that's what we want from Tyson Fury. We want him to unify, and anything else for us would be, oh, this is disappointing. But what's another option? We mentioned the exhibition fight with Francis, but right after, in a post-fight interview, he's already mentioning WWE. Like, he didn't even give himself a day to start talking about the WWE. He started talking WWE during the post-fight interviews. Drew McIntyre, I think he said, he was talking a lot of smack or something along those lines, and Tyson Fury knows how to keep himself in the loop. So I'm hoping, at least for me, is that Tyson Fury is, how can I say, 2 steps ahead of everyone. I'm hoping that while that AJ Usyk situation is unraveling and we're finding out who would be Tyson Fury's opponent or most desirable opponent, that he's going to keep marketing himself through WWE, through exhibition bouts with Francis, and then eventually fighting the winner of AJ versus Usyk. But that's not necessarily the case, and we don't always get to see what we want to see in boxing, and that's been clear as day. We never got to see AJ versus Wilder. And we wanted to see them undefeated, and that's the thing, And now Usyk versus Fury, both of them undefeated, or Fury versus Anthony Joshua for all the marbles, that would be amazing. But are we going to get it? We haven't seen Bud Crawford versus Spence, although we're really close, and I'm hoping that that's happening soon. But regardless of the situation, Tyson Fury did put himself in that position. He worked his butt off. He, had a trilogy fight against Deontay Wilder. Gave it his all, and that's what really propelled him to stardom, or at least got the ball rolling. Everything he's done as a boxer, all the sacrifices he's made, all the hard work, all the pain that he's endured, that he's put his body through. I mean, at the end of the day, he earned to have the option of what he wants to do next. So as far as us, we just got to play the waiting game. You know what I mean? He definitely earned everything for the ball to be on his side of the playing field. So we just got to wait and see. But possibilities are endless. What I personally don't want to see is I don't want to see Tyson Fury retire and then be one of those guys who's always jibber-jabbing and throwing jabs from the sidelines at the current heavyweight division or at the current champions. That's what I don't want to see. But you've seen Tyson Fury give a lot of credit when credit is due. He said he wanted to see Wilder fight for that belt that he's going to give up. So it doesn't seem like he would do that. But that's just what I don't want to see. I don't want to see a Tyson Fury from the sidelines always jibber-jabbering. Oh, you're a bum. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. Or I would do this. I would do that. No, I wouldn't want to see that. And I also don't want to see Tyson Fury go to the WWE, an exhibition bout, and then try to come back, when he's older in his career for a last desperation payday, which he could be lured into. I mean, money's always there in boxing, and money does talk. But if there's any one person to retire and stay retired, I believe it'd be Tyson Fury. He's just that guy. He's so unpredictable. You don't know what he's thinking, what he's going to do next. So Fury's got options, but we'll see where we're at with him, after the AJ Usyk situation, and we'll see if he's been staying in the loop, if he's been staying kind of low profile. We'll see. We'll see. But, from last weekend in Tyson Fury, we're going to move over to next weekend, or this upcoming week, because it is fight week for Shakur Stevenson and Oscar Valdez. It's going to be a great matchup, guys. You guys, I don't know how to put it. It's a clash in styles, and it's a fight in which a star might be born. It might blossom in front of our eyes. Like Shakur's a generational fighter. Let's put it that way. That's what Top Rank is saying. His defensive skills, he's so smart in the ring. His last fight, he dominated, and he's a victim of his own success because as easy as he dominated Herring, we're not giving him enough credit for that fight. Now we're just saying that Herring was washed. So if I feel like, as I mentioned before, a victim of his own success would be if he goes in there and slams Valdez and makes him look a fool, hypothetically speaking, if this were to happen. We're just going to say that Valdez was a one-dimensional come-forward fighter, that he had really no business being in there with Shakur. No, we got to start giving these guys credit when credit is due. Yeah, we might play favorites, but Shakur's earned everything that he's gotten coming out of the Olympics, you know what I mean? He didn't get that decision victory for the gold medal, but he's really rallied and started coming into his own as a professional fighter. Now, victim of his own success, very well defensive minded. The ball's on he's almost there. Is he gonna have that heel turn like Mayweather did, going from Pretty Boy Floyd to Money May? We don't know, but we saw what it did for Floyd Mayweather. We did see what it did. We saw the benefits of him turning heel. But Valdez on his own right is going to go in there and play spoiler. This isn't a coming out party for Shakur. You're gonna make him earn it, and this is gonna be a good test for both fighters. Mainly because I want to see, boxing's about getting hit and coming back. So if, again, Shakur Stevenson, he goes in there, blasts Valdez, or it's a competitive fight. Stevenson comes out on top. What's next for Valdez after that? Does he go back bottom of the line? Or does he stay relevant because Shakur Stevenson's such a good fighter? Now, we saw that guy Jeremiah Nakatilia come back. And as I mentioned before, that fight looks even better on paper now after Nakatilia went and stopped Burchell. You know, that fight was impressive. No wonder Shakur went the distance with the guy. He's a hard puncher. He's a strong dude. But we do have to start giving these guys credit. And Shakur Stevenson, that fight's going to be tricky because as much as you want to say he might, you know, it might be tailor-made from a come-forward fighter who's going to try to be aggressive. He's going to be playing to Shakur Stevenson's counter skills. Could be. Yeah, very well could be. But so when you have someone like Eddy Reynoso in your corner, it just adds that level, like that little level of what's going to happen. Like, what wrinkle are you going to add to his game? What's the game plan going to be? Is it going to be what everyone thinks it's going to be, where Valdez is going to come in, try to rough him up, Marcos Maidana style? Or is it going to be like he's going to plan accordingly and try to make Valdez more of a boxer puncher, boxer slugger? Like, it's just very interesting, because if there's one person to get it out of you, you would assume it's Eddy Reynoso, right? Like, I just don't see it not being Eddy Reynoso. Like, Eddy Reynoso has to have something up his sleeve. Now, he might have a thing or two up his sleeve, but can Valdez actually apply it in the ring? And that's what the curiosity comes from, because I don't want to say that Shakur is just a superior fighter. You have to give credit. Valdez has earned his 30-0 in his own right, and he's had some tough fights. So another tough fight, he's kind of mentally built for this already. He's already there. Like, I know this is going to be a tough fight. It might be the toughest fight of my career. I'm going to get hit, but he already knows that going in. Whereas Shakur, he might be thinking, I'm going to box him. I'm going to, you know, you don't know what these guys are thinking. You know, I don't know. We all know Valdez might be like, oh man, I'm going to get, you know, you don't know. You don't know. I don't want to play psychologist here. But one can only assume, you know, and one can only assume, and until we see Shakur being dragged into the trenches and having them have that style of fight, we don't know what's going to happen. Personally, I think this is a good fight for Shakur Stevenson. We're going to find out a lot from him, because victim of his own success, we didn't find out a lot from Herring. We just found out he was an exceptional boxer. But we want to find out a little bit more as far as heart, fire, and passion when it comes to this fight. Because Valdez, he's going to bring it. He's not going to make it easy. He's not going to fold. As much as he comes in, you know, he's going to give it his all. And that's a lot. That's a lot. So I've mentioned this before, and I think I mentioned it in the preview video as well. And on the article that I have regarding this matchup, I call it one of two things. I call it's going to be either like a Mayweather Maidana, Mayweather Castillo, where it's going to be a rough, rugged fight, but Shakur's going to pull it off at the end. He's going to find a way to win. He's going to find a way to get that space and land the accurate punches. Or it's going to be a fight like Gotti Mayweather, or even Gotti Corrales, where he's just landing at will and he's just dominating the guy and ultimately puts him away. Now, would I be surprised if either or happens? No, because in this game, in this boxing game, when you get to this level of competition, like, it's very tick for tack. You know, a lot of people win because they were just a little more well prepared. Some of them had a better game plan. Some of them were just outright better. Let's just face it. Sometimes you're that good, and all these fights that look like they're competitive fights are mismatches because one guy is really good. But you get to a level to where Shakur has to have the game plan. He has to be, and he's going to be that much better, tick for tack, point for point, and he's going to be winning. Those fights might not happen this weekend, but eventually those are the fights we're going to start seeing. And those fights might not happen until we see him face like a Devin Haney maybe a Teofimo Lopez, a Camboso. You know what I mean? Like, there's just a lot to see. But this fight is going to give us the opportunity to see if he's ready for that type of fighter. Who knows? Maybe this guy comes in and looks so amazing that we're like, you know what? I'm going to put him above all those other young kids. We just don't know at this point. We just know that he's an exceptional athlete, a tremendous boxer, and he's regarded as, like we said, a generational fighter. It's just a matter of time. Is that heel turn going to happen, though? I don't know. We saw what it did, as I mentioned before, with Pretty Boy Floyd to Money Mayweather. I don't see Money Shakur happening, but he might have something up his sleeve. You know, hey, it's all for the purpose of entertainment. Take a page out of Tyson Fury's book. You know what I mean? Start marketing yourself at other aspects, other companies, other areas, so that more people can draw in. You know who else wanted the WWE? Floyd Mayweather. Right? You know who else went in WWE? Jake Paul or Logan, one of the Paul brothers. You know what I mean? It draws that level of attention to you, and it gets you a bigger fan base. So, you know, start working with that so that we can really see your skills at the highest level, at the most anticipated moments. Kind of like how we did last week. And hey, you're both top ranked, so who knows? Could be something up your sleeve, right? So we'll see, but this is something that, as I mentioned, could be either a really tough fight, could be a very easy fight. Valdez just scares me a little bit because he's been tagged up a little bit. I know that the Concepcion fight was tough, and then I do know that Adam Lopez was very tough for him as well. So I'm kind of like leaning heavy towards Shakur, potential Shakur knockout, you know what I mean, later stages of the fight. But we'll see. That's why we fight. That's why we see what Valdez can get out of. One punch can change the whole fight. So definitely don't count out an Eddy Reynoso fighter. I mean, Andy Reese got dropped and he came back and did really well, stayed composed. But we'll see. We'll see how it plays out as far as game plan and execution goes. What about, speaking of execution, we do have a potential another big time fight with Spence and Terence Crawford. You know, and I think it's time. I think in boxing, it's turning into undisputed season. You can call it that, I feel like. We are getting closer and closer to getting more undisputed fights than that I can remember, at least. We have the 140. We have Josh Taylor already undisputed. You know, we're looking to get 147 undisputed. And it looks like, what was it, 60? Canelo did super middleweight, and he's en route to do the 175. Like that. I mean, call it what it is. It's undisputed season. Usyk not that long ago at cruiserweight and the heavyweight division, pending Usyk Joshua and what the status is going to be for Tyson Fury. I mean, we're getting more and more of this undisputed in dream matches. So hopefully we can get that Errol Spence and Bud Crawford, you know, ASAP, you know, because it's something that the fans have been waiting for too long, and we don't want it to get spoiled. That's the thing. We don't want it to get spoiled, but all signs, everything points to it happening. It all points to Spence wanting to fight Bud Crawford wanting to fight Spence. We just have to start seeing offers being sent back and forth. Hopefully it happens at the end of this year, maybe something back in like November, October. Give himself enough time to properly prepare for the biggest match of their life. The 147 is probably one of the most exciting weight classes. 154 is exciting as well, and we might get unification there as well. I mean, I know Brian versus Charlo, and then I do know that it's already undisputed. That's already undisputed. That's already all the belts. I'm sorry, but I do know from 147, and this is speaking out loud. Crawford was undisputed at 140. He can potentially be undisputed at 147, and then if he moves to 154 and he becomes undisputed there, he might jump over. It's going to be tough to jump over Canelo, but he might be able to jump up over Canelo briefly. Just because, and this is just because we have to see what Canelo is going to do at 175. If they both unify, and then Canelo decides to go to cruiserweight, as it's been mentioned before, then I would keep Canelo at the pound for pound list, number one. But Terrence Crawford is right down his neck. You know what I mean? It just depends. It depends. And it depends how they go about it as well. Like, does he unify at cruiserweight? Does he... Because Usyk's already said, I'll go back down to cruiserweight for a Canelo fight. And looking at it from that perspective, it's just, you go Usyk from challenging someone that's 6'9", to challenging someone that's, what, 5'8", 5'9"? Like, that's insane to me. That's... And that's where Usyk's at, and that's where Canelo, like, pound for pound, moving from weight class to weight class, is up at too. Because remember, he's been fighting at 54, 60, 68, 75. So what he's doing is impressive as far as pound for pound goes. If he can unify 175 and then go to cruiserweight, that's just mind-blowing stuff right there, man. I really don't. Say what you want about competitiveness and weight classes. The fact that you're jumping so much weight and winning, I don't know. But Bud Crawford is right behind him doing the same thing from 40, 47, 54. And I don't know where Bud Crawford would draw that line at some point. Maybe 60? I don't know if he teased it with 60 though. It'd be tough. But all that is pending if Spence, he has to get by Spence too, who looked really good in his, despite that little rookie mistake he looked really good against Ugas. That uppercut, and that's an article I'll be writing mainly on the uppercut, so you guys stay tuned on my website. But that uppercut, man, that orbital bone, do I think Crawford can get hit by it? Yes. Do I think he's going to stand there and take it multiple times? No. Two different fighters. Again, tick for tack. This is where high-level competition, one little adjustment is going to change the fight. They can both get hit. They've both gotten hit before. But it's going to go back down to execution when this fight happens. Hopefully it happens soon, though. Another article I wrote was the Canelo versus Bivol, but trainers. Looking at Eddy Reynoso versus Joel Diaz. And looking at those, it's very interesting so, because Canelo is in a hot streak. He's not looking to lose. He has Trainer of the Year for, I don't know if it's 2 consecutive years, but I know last year he won Trainer of the Year. He's in line to win it again, Eddy Reynoso. Because if he were to beat and upset a Shakur Stevenson, and then win with Canelo, and then win Andy Reese beats King Kong, if he beats him, we do have Triple G versus Canelo. That's Coach of the Year again, Trainer of the Year. You know, there's a lot of other trainers that I like, but I think he would be kind of taking a step above all of them, regardless of what happens. Specifically, if he has that upset victory over Shakur Stevenson. Like I said, Trainer of the Year, he'd definitely be earning it, because that's a tough task. That's a tall task. So I did a quick little seeing who has advantages, and we were looking at the experience factor at both trainers, and Joel Diaz has a lot of experience. He's been on the scene a little bit longer than Eddy Reynoso, and he's fought the likes, or competed against Juan Manuel Marquez. He's competed against Manny Pacquiao. So he's had his fair share. I think for Volknikov, Timothy Bradley went in there, and that was his chief, you know, in the corner, was Joel Diaz. So very, very interesting to see how they'll go about this Canelo fight. Now, it's not the first time they fought Canelo, because Andy Yildirim was actually in the corner. He was in the corner, I'm sorry, when he fought Yildirim. Yildirim picked Joel Diaz, which, for those of you who don't know, he has a lot of those Ukrainian, Russian boxers, and they all come down to him for some reason. That's like his pipeline. Like, he has Bivol, he has, what's the bully? The bully, I can't think of his name. Bekter, his name is Bekter, the bully. And he has a lot of those Russian, Ukrainian fighters that use him. They like his style, they like his work ethic, and it just meshes. I don't know if it's something with the manager, someone that he's working with, but he has a couple more, and they're all undefeated, by the way. These guys are all undefeated. They come to him undefeated Olympians, and then they just work, you know. Along with, you know, what he works with here in the States. He has a great amateur system. So he's very active in the boxing scene. He's the type of guy that you can see him or his brother Antonio in the amateur local fights here in Southern California. You might run into one of their future champions, you know. But going forward, he has a lot of experience. And he's going to know what to do, especially after seeing Canelo. This is his second time seeing him. Obviously, things didn't go his way the first time, but now he has a more capable opponent and a bigger opponent as well. Not someone that Canelo is very familiar with. Bivol, what can he get a little bit more out of Bivol? Yeah, of course. Especially with seeing him already, he kind of knows what to expect and what he wants to do. If he's flat-footed, how he anticipates punches. So I do feel like he'll be able to add little wrinkles to his game. So that Bivol doesn't get caught with something big, specifically early on the fight. But then you have on the other end, you have Eddy Reynoso, and he himself is no pushover, like, as far as experience. Now, Canelo has given him a lot of experience. Shane Mosley he's faced. He's faced Cotto, Mayweather. You know what I mean? Those Triple G. Those are all guys that he's faced. And here's the beauty of it. He faced those type of guys, and now if you move over to Shakur, he's going to have faced, I mean, if you move over to Valdez, Valdez is facing Shakur before. So if you think Shakur is tricky, I mean, if you think Bivol is tricky, imagine how much trickier Shakur is going to be to hit when he's a really defensive-minded fighter. So I think learning from Shakur and the previous fights, he will be able to dissect Bivol and give Canelo a little bit of an advantage as far as experience goes. Just because he's been active so much and so recently, I do feel like he has a good recipe for success right now. Now, Joe Diaz in his own right does have a recipe for success. But the experience factor right now, I think Eddy Reynoso gets. But if I were to give one advantage to Joel Diaz, he's been in this position before. He's been the underdog. Timothy Bradley versus Manny Pacquiao is, although controversial, he wasn't expected to win. He went in there, had Tim Bradley in shape, he had a game plan, he was rolling, he made him active, he made him throw punches. Yeah, everyone thought Pacquiao won the first fight, but he made it, I guess, competitive in the eyes of the judges, and he might be able to do the same as long as he's physically ready and able to compete. Now, this fight is obviously a little bit different because you would figure Bivol might be able to do more than Timothy Bradley was to Manny Pacquiao. But even though you can say Timothy Bradley didn't do enough, he won the fight. So he may be able to put him in that position to win that fight. Not to mention, that fight against Canelo and Yildirim was a concert before the fight even started. It was a showcase for Canelo. Obviously, Canelo won the bout. Yildirim was there. He got blasted. You know, it's all right. It happens. You were facing the best. But Joel Diaz knows how to deal with that type of crowd. He's been around that atmosphere. And that calm, cool, and collectiveness will rub off on Bivol because Bivol has faced good competition. He's a former Olympian, but he's never been in that fight of that magnitude. So, despite the great experience that he has, he's going to have someone that's going to be cool, calm, and collective in that corner that's going to bring him back to reality when he sees all the flashing lights, when he sees the fireworks, when he sees the crowd, when he hears the crowd roar. But Joel Diaz has been there before. And I think that's a good factor because Eddy Reynoso is expected to win. Let's be real. Eddy Reynoso and Saul Canelo Alvarez are expected to win that bout. They're expected to go in and but win a good competitive fight. Because we already have our sights on Triple G for next year. And we already have our sights to potentially 175 next year to unify belts. He has plans for the future. But what's going to happen, or what would happen, if Bivol lands that punch and he hurts Canelo? That single-handedly can throw all those plans for the future away, flush them down the toilet, because he's going to be looking for redemption after that. So I do feel like Joel Diaz is playing with house money right there. So that in itself is going to be a factor in how they go about the approach. A fighter that's got nothing to lose is a dangerous fighter. So I'll just leave it at that. And I do like the positioning of Joel Diaz being in that position as an underdog over Eddy Reynoso, having plans for 2-3 years from now, potentially going to cruiserweight by the time Canelo is done, because one punch can change 2-3 years of your career just like that. Now, ultimately, I do feel like the better trainer would be Eddy Reynoso. It's just, if you had to give one advantage for Joel Diaz, it's going to be that he's ready to be the underdog. He's been the underdog, and he's going to take full advantage of it. But as far as like overall game plan, Canelo, Eddy Reynoso, that camp is too strong. Now, execution is going to be a big factor, but from what we've seen, and it's going to be a good preview against Shakur Stevenson versus Valdez, is how ready is Valdez? Because just as ready as Valdez is, Canelo is a week apart from that. So Canelo is just in good shape. So I'm just curious to see how good of a shape these two are, and I want to see how they're both going to perform, because I think he's going to learn a lot from hitting a slick fighter, defensive-minded fighter, a master boxer that you would say, defensive fighter in Shakur Stevenson, and applying a little bits and pieces to fight Bivol. And I think it's genius that he has Shakur Stevenson and then Canelo fighting after, because he's going to be able to add a wrinkle to the game if he sees something that he likes or something that works against a very, very slick and game Shakur Stevenson. But what do you guys think? Talk to me, guys. These will be eventually live, hopefully. But for now, we're going to keep them maybe weekly, bi-weekly, monthly. They are podcast episode. Box Office Boxing podcast. Let's talk boxing, guys. What do you guys think about the Tyson Fury situation? What do you guys think he should do next? What do you think about Shakur Stevenson? Does he need to make that heel turn so that he can finally get that audience? So people are going to pay whether they want you to win or whether they want you to lose. If you can get more people to pay to want you to lose, then get them to make you lose, pay to make you lose. Or want you to make you lose. Bloopers, right? And Errol Spence versus Crawford. How do you guys see that fight panning out? If Crawford were to somehow unify at 40, 54, 40, 47, 54, mind blown, guys. And then Canelo Bivol, a battle of the trainers. I got slightly edge to Eddy Reynoso, but I do like where Joel Diaz is standing as far as an underdog. Talk to me in the comments section, guys. I love interacting and talking boxing. Let's keep the chat going. Let's keep it active, and we'll talk to you guys next time. Take care, guys.